cultural victory, Cox explains, the daughters preserved and transmitted what she terms Confederate culture. Confederate culture dominated America's historical memory of the Old South and the Confederacy for decades, and was not dislodged until the rise of the modern civil rights movement. Ironically, the UDC accomplished in peacetime what their Confederate forebears had failed to achieve during war. The daughters did so by memorializing dead Confederate soldiers and the society that they had fought to preserve. UDC members rewrote history by transforming the Confederates from traitors into patriots. They raised funds to support homes for aging and indigent Confederate veterans and their widows. They erected monuments to the Confederate dead at courthouses and town squares throughout the South. And they distributed Confederate flags and library books to public schools for white children. As Cox makes clear, the UDC made a concerted effort to use these symbols to educate white children in the alleged glories and venerable traditions of the Old South. The daughters recognized the importance of weaving Confederate traditions into the true history of the Civil War in textbooks and public culture on the state, local, and national levels. Determined to document and interpret history impartially, which for them meant from a decidedly Southern perspective, the daughters played instrumental roles in establishing cultural institutions in the South, including the Museum of the Confederacy, the Alabama State Department of Archives and History, and the North Carolina Museum of History. To advance its cause, the UDC sponsored essay contests and offered college scholarships for needy white men and women, descendants of Confederate veterans. The UDC left no stone unturned, Cox concludes, to ensure that the next generation was motivated to honor and uphold the values of the Confederate generation as they had. The UDC's success in honoring the sacrifices of the Confederate generation perpetuated the traditions and values of the Old South, including white supremacy and racial segregation. Later generations of women and men exposed the intolerance and racism that had always lain at the taproot of Confederate culture. John David Smith, Series Editor. Note on sources and evidence. The primary sources for this study include the publications of UDC members, the minutes of state and general conventions, pamphlets and speeches by members, and The Confederate Veteran, a periodical that faithfully covered the activities of the UDC. One of the ironies of an organization that placed a premium on preserving history is that former UDC presidents, whose correspondence was no doubt voluminous, did not deposit their correspondence in public repositories. Biographical information proved to be sparse. However, numerous manuscript collections across the South contain information from which some personal portraits can be created. Those manuscripts also offer insights on the inner workings of the UDC and are included in this study. The Museum of the Confederacy in Richmond, Virginia, founded by the Confederate Literary Memorial Society in 1896, has the best collection of primary source material on the UDC. Even their presidential correspondence is meager. However, the museum does house the scrapbooks of former Historian General Mildred Rutherford, a native of Georgia who often appeared in 1860s attire, complete with hoop skirts and spaniel curls. Rutherford zealously perpetuated the truth about the South and compiled more than 70 scrapbooks that offer valuable information on the organization's membership and history. Finally, I have conducted several interviews with women whose longtime association with the daughters began when they joined the Children of the Confederacy, C, the UDC's official auxiliary, in the 1920s and 1930s. These oral histories provide valuable insights into the personality of the early organization and the ways in which children were involved in the Confederate tradition. These interviews also serve as evidence of the longevity of Lost Cause ideology.